All right, guys, want to welcome you once again to Three Dads Talk Theme Parks. And tonight, Ron and myself will be going over episode 2 and how to turn your pixie rust into pixie dust, what to do when things or people turn negative on your vacation. It is a reality. It's a tough reality. A lot of people get very frustrated about their vacations, but we are here to tell you there are different ways to look at it, and it is all about your attitude and how you choose to deal with things. And that is what we are going to discuss tonight. So Ron's here, I'm here, you're here, and feel free to make comments, jump online. Once again, this is a pretty new concept still, so feel free to like, share, involve yourself, jump in, make comments, talk to us, ask questions, whatever Please. You want to do. We want to get this out to as many people as we possibly can. So with that being said, Ron had the idea for the show, so I'll let him kind of kick it off.
Well, that was quick. Well, how's everybody doing? Like Brian said, it was just something that we were kicking around when we were talking sort of at the end after the show. And I tell you, I could actually talk for hours about stuff like this, but I'd welcome anyone who's listening in to go ahead and throw out your thoughts, questions, comments. I've heard some people say that, after us being permitted to come out of our caves, given the past year and a half, they're disappointed because it seems like some folks out there are behaving worse than when this whole thing started. And, I think it all has to start with what's your perspective? What are your optics, right? And I mean, across the board, whether you're talking as a guest, a cast member, a team member, a manager, a leader, an executive, the optics, it make all the difference in the world. I think when you're getting worked up, probably the first thing you need to do is figure out why you're worked up. What are your expectations? As a guest, as a cast member, as a team member, what's the thing that you want? What's the thing that you hope for? Sometimes it's just a matter of asking. I think also sometimes it's just a matter of what is it? The attitude of gratitude. I love that expression. Yeah. I love that. I love that expression. And I think after not being able to do anything, this is the longest period in my life I've ever gone without going to the parks. I'm so used to being able to go so frequently. And I know, Brian and T are certainly the same way. A great trick is to look for the things that bring joy, if that makes sense. As a guest, why are you going? What's the thing that brings you joy? What's your happy place?
Well, I think as a guest, I think one of the issues too is as a guest, and you and I have discussed this before, there is an element of, the amount of money it costs a family to go on a trip to Disney is an exorbitant amount of money. It's not a cheap vacation. It's, you're spending a lot of money. I think with that comes a level of expectation for a lot of people, which shouldn't, but it's just a reality.
So
when they get in there and hit that first hiccup or that first bump in the road or that first Florida afternoon thunderstorm that makes them think, oh my gosh, it's going to rain every day we're here.
I totally get that. But, one of the things that I always enjoyed engaging people such as yourself, when I was at the parks was, think about the expectations and think about how you're dressing or directing those expectations. If you're a sports fan and you hold, let's say, 4 season tickets to a sporting game or event, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, you pick it. That can be a ridiculously expensive enterprise, especially when you factor in that that's maybe, if you're not tailgating, that's only 2 or 3 hours. And for 2 or 3 hours, for 4 people, you're spending a boatload of money. I mean,
I live in one of the most expensive ballparks in the country to go to Fenway.
Yeah. So again, it's about optics. First of all, you have the opportunity to plan out, and I like contributing to a few different social media blogs and threads where people will ask, how are you able to make these trips so frequently? All you have to do is watch. The smart thing to do is, don't travel when everyone else travels. If that means you've got to take time off of work, then you save your money to take the time off. And you find that you actually spend less money than you would if, you had that EB time anyway. But I think it's all perspective. The amount of money you spend, granted, pre-pandemic, everything was fully operational. You get an awful lot when you factor in, you go to a sporting event, right? You pay your 25 or $30 unless you have premium parking, in which case you spend a whole lot more. What does that get you? That parking fee at a sporting event gets you that patch of real estate. At the theme parks, it gets you all of their transportation. That's where those fees go. So it's really important to consider that. I agree. One little hiccup can certainly put people off, but I think you also, how unreasonable are you being? If you're upset because the person behind the register is still earning their ears, or they're just 1 week into being a team member, give them some grace, cut them some slack, because they're probably going to talk to and help 10 times the number of people you will if you come from a hospitality industry background, and that's a thing that people sometimes lose focus on.
Like Charles just said, Charles just threw a comment up and was talking about when his mom worked at Disney, and forgive my eyes for wandering up, but I'm reading the comment. And she said people dropped 5K plus in the 90s. And this is something that I think some people don't understand. And, I didn't mean it in the sense that Disney is expensive for everyone, but there are a lot of people that go the deluxe route that, are going for that one trip. Tegan and I go consistently. We've been blessed to be able to go consistently over the last few years. That's probably coming to an end for us, thanks to the pandemic. We have to budget more stringently now. But even as when we started in 2012, we took one trip a year, and we maxed out that trip. We stayed at Wilderness Lodge, or the Polynesian, or the Beach Club, or a nice resort. And we would take our one trip, and we would spend $10,000-$12,000 to go enjoy Disney for 10 days. And it was a lot of money. And, as we became more progressive with our travels and wanted to try to go more, we saved by investing in annual passes. And then the annual pass eliminates the need to purchase the ticket. Then you can shop the cheaper hotels. You can shop cheaper flights. Unfortunately, due to my visitation with Tegan, I always had to travel over the holidays. The only real inexpensive vacation we got a year was our 10-day vacation that I could take in July or August. And I could kind of tail it to the end of August, where most of the Florida kids were back in school. It would be hotter than the footprint of the sun, but we got less crowds, less to deal with, and we're able to do more. When we went for 4th of July or Memorial Day or over Columbus Day weekend, or to be politically correct, whatever they are calling holidays now, we're traveling during that time frame, and that is when prices are the highest. So we wound up finding ourselves going for the all-star resorts, the pop resorts, where we could save as much money as possible to stay there. But I think one of the hiccups that runs into people is when they travel to Disney, there's an expectation that they themselves make a preconceived notion of how their trip is going to go. And if they've never Disneyed before, you walk in and you're like, I spent $10,000 and I got these three, back again pre-COVID, I got these 3 fast passes and I booked like, one of the mistakes a lot of people made with fast passes is they would book rides that you didn't need a fast pass for. Right. So they would kind of waste that choice. But they go in without necessarily having the knowledge, which the goal of what we're going to try to do with this live stream every week is give people a better sense of the knowledge of what they'll need to enhance their experience. But when you go in and you've spent $10,000, $12,000 and you have your 1 o'clock reservation and Disney says, hey, we're on like a 40-minute wait. We're running behind. We'll get you in as fast as we can. And you have to wait 45 minutes. Some people get aggravated by that. And there's simple solutions by adjusting your own attitude.
Right.
But I think there's an element of legitimacy to some of the complaints. And then there's also people that start to complain about stuff that you almost have to chuckle at because you're a seasoned theme park veteran. But for the person that's never been there, we have to take the time to explain to them, all the rides are going to go down every afternoon when there's a severe thunderstorm. They can't run rides in lightning. They can't, everything outside is going to shut down if lightning's within 5 miles for a minimum of 30 minutes. And people get upset.
So, a couple of things, because you hit on a point that I want to build on, which is, anybody who's listening or watching, if you're going to travel somewhere for the first time, if you're going to take a cruise, if you're going overseas, you're probably going to talk to people who have done it. You're going to do the research online. You're going to maybe ask your travel agent. You're going to ask a specialist. You want to make sure you maximize what the experience is going to be. You don't want to get there and go, all right, I'm in Paris. Where the heck's this tower everybody talks about? You're going to ask people. And I think,
correct.
I think with Disney, it's the same thing. People who call and make reservations, that right there is your first line of information. That cast member at the call center will point you in the direction for information you need. Talk to people who have information, are knowledgeable because they've been. You can find out things such as, where should I eat? Brian, to your point, what fast passes should I get? Correct. When should I get to the park? What can I do with my 4-year-old? Things like that. Mm-hmm. All of that planning ahead of time, it gives you the relief, the buffer of not stressing. It's almost like in film and TV, as much pre-production that can happen before cameras start rolling saves money and aggravation as well as time. So, I think all of that needs to be factored in, and you're taking an enormous weight off your shoulders. The other point I just wanted to quickly make was, I'm sure they're going to come back at some point, probably about a year before the pandemic. During the slower periods, Disney runs these promotions. And I remember one that jumped out at me was I think it was a family of 4 at a value resort, including I think it was 4 or 5 day stay, and it included 4-day, one park each day tickets. But the package for that was $1,600. And when you figure out the amount of money you spend, again, one sporting event for 4 people, you're spending that much money, and that's what, 2 or 3 hours of your life.
Right.
So I think, for anybody listening and watching, when you're planning a trip, ask around and it's always
Disney carries value. Like I don't want to, and I agree with you 100% there that, when you realize that, every Disney park on any given day has the population of a mid-sized town in it, And that's any of the 4 parks. You know, you're talking most likely, unless you live in a major city or a major downtown,
Right.
it's your town's
Yep.
population is inside the park you're standing in on a given day. And when you think about it like that, you know, if you go to the supermarket, you go anywhere, their popularity is there. They're going to make their money. And you know, like if you have the attitude that you spent this much money. I remember watching the person that made us start doing the thank you cards, just ripping that kid apart, saying how he had spent $10,000 to be there for 5 days. And what I kind of said to him was, you and every other person that's walking through the park spent that money. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you all are entitled to a good experience and the best experience Disney can give you. But if weather comes in and rides go down or things don't work or situations happen, it's not on Disney to make it up to you personally.
But you know, the best thing you can do when things don't go your way, remember, you always attract more bees with honey than vinegar. And if you have a challenge, as a guest in any park or resort anywhere, if you have a challenge and you can't get it resolved and it's a big enough issue, if it's a small issue, I've gotten grief from a couple of people for doing this, but if it's a small issue and I'm out somewhere, I can't help it. It's the servant leader in me. I will grab an opportunity to coach the server who's taking care of me and my party at the table, or I will talk to someone behind the counter and I'll ask them to walk me through why that process happens the way it does. But if you're having some sort of a horrible, terrible, the tires just stopped on a dime moment, ask to talk to a manager.
Correct.
And when you talk to the manager, start out by saying, help me to understand, or I'm having a challenge understanding, and then go into it. Please don't spin a tale. That's not going to help you. Keep the emotion out of it, because one of two things is going on. The manager either is aware or they're not aware. All right. Give them a chance. I tell people when they go to restaurants and they have a bad experience, or you go to a resort or a hotel and you have a terrible experience, it's like, did you talk to anyone? No, I didn't want to bother. And I was like, well, then you must have been okay having a terrible experience, because I want a chance to make it right. And
correct.
I'll tell you, whether you were part of my cast that I was working with for the day, whether you were one of the entertainment teams that I had the opportunity to work with, or one of the stage shows I got to stage manage, if you're a guest, if you're lost, whatever's going on, I always ask the same question. What can I do to make your life better? What can I do to make your day better? That's always, well, hello, Becca. That's always the thing that I want to do. I want to make it so that you walk away thinking, number one, whatever happened wasn't so bad. And number two, I am so glad I went and talked to that Ron guy. It's so much better than walking around fuming and then maybe grabbing your phone and posting on Instagram, I can't believe it's raining and I can't find a manager to talk to, or I can't believe I went to get a beer and they only filled it 3/4 of the way. You know, it doesn't hurt you to talk to people. And if you feel like you're not talking to the right people, then just seek them out. Seek them out, you know?
I think that's the point you hit on the hardest, is because in business, you know, escalation is important. And you know, in the customer service industry at any level, understanding the principles behind an escalation are equally important. You can't take out frustration on the person who is simply doing the job they're told to and doesn't have any power to make anything better for you. And those are the people that are, fortunately, are the frontline faces in the industry. They're the ride operators. They're the people greeting you as you enter the park. You know, Disney does a great job for having roving management and roving personnel. But if you don't understand that principle, you're looking for the person in the costume assigned to the ride that's just pretty much an operator. And if you're taking out frustration on that operator, I remember someone telling me the percentages of numbers, like after 4 p.m. at Disney, something like 60% of the people working had been there less than 6 months on average because of the college program. And the college program would have a lot of the ride operators working the evenings. Your full-timers are working the day. A lot of the explanations to some of the staffing stuff. And if you have issues with someone who has worked at Disney for less than a couple of months, what do you think they're going to be able to do? If you're screaming at them, you're going to be putting them on the verge of tears, and they're going to, feel powerless. And getting them to the right people, going to customer service, going to guest relations, picking up the phone even when you get home and making that phone call and having a non-anger based conversation with someone on the phone. And Charles mentioned it earlier, Disney, do they have a vacation planner number or website? They do have the direct line into customer service specialists that are going to be able to help you, that are cast members that can help you with planning, help you with issues, or send you to the department that can help you with specific issues. Whether it be tech related, reservation related, ticket related, whatever, they'll send you to the right department and you can escalate any conversation or complaint.
But honestly, I feel very strongly if you have an issue while you're at the park, resort, restaurant, wherever it is, it's much better when you can address it with your feet on the ground there, because the manager there can 100%. Respond to me. And I'll tell you why it's so important. First of all, you're doing a course correction in the moment. Okay. If you flip the script, you put yourself in their position. Maybe you don't know as a manager or a cast member, because no one's brought this to your attention, as a team member or an employee, if you weren't shown how to do this, you're not going to know there's a different or better way. When people go home, and I'm not saying don't do this, but when I have seen this happen, I've had this happen to me. I'll ask how someone's day is and how things are, and are they finding everything okay? Yes, they are. And then I find out later, they complained about a host of issues they had problems with. Some were negligible, and others I never had a chance to take a crack at because they never said anything to me. Correct. What happens in those cases is, for example, you go to a restaurant, you have a bad experience, you go home, instead of talking to the manager, you write a letter to corporate. And now corporate's got to send their regional representative over to the restaurant to have a talking to the manager. Now the manager's sitting there trying to figure out what went wrong, because that's probably not going to be. It's not going to be timely either. So,
correct.
Give people a chance. Give them an opportunity to look at you, whether through word or action, and say, what can I do to make your world better?
And I think the other side of that too, Ron, to be totally honest, is I think sometimes while people are on that vacation, they're like, we can just address this when we get home, rather than, because if you're a dad standing with your 5-year-old and your 5-year-old is frustrated over something, you're not necessarily going to go seek out guest relations right in that moment, because you want to try to fix it for your child. So I understand both sides of that argument.
But you know what? Sorry to interrupt. You pointed out just a few minutes ago, the parks are heavily populated with leadership. It's not so much so you can swing a cat and hit a manager, but it's very easy, and they're all connected. If you have an issue at a restaurant, but you don't have the time to talk to a manager because you've got to get to whatever, the 3:15 show for Nemo, but on the way you run into a Disney PhotoPass manager, you bring it up to him, you say, hey, listen, Bob, who would I talk to about a slight challenge we had when we were over at Yak and Yeti? and they'll ask you like, oh gosh, I'm listen, here's my number. Let me make some calls and I'll call you back. Cause that's the other thing they'll do. You know, I tell people all the time, I never ever said, I don't know. I always said, if someone asked me a question, needed information, needed help, needed guidance, needed something, and I wasn't sure what my next step should be, I would just look at them and say, you know what? Let's find out together. Make phone calls, go to areas, whatever it takes.
I think the other side of that too is people generally as guests in such an entitled world now. There are so many people that set expectations and then kind of demand that the company or the agency or the store be responsible for their frustration instead of taking onus to say, it's also what I make it.
Right.
And that's another big issue that I see at Disney a lot, because I see some parents that can take that heated moment where their kid melts down in front of, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train when they're not tall enough and gets upset and they're running for manager or whatever. And then other parents are so good with transitioning their children or themselves.
Here's a great example of
my mother's name is Karen, Charles. I think I've had to listen to a Karen my whole life. I'm very well adept at it.
And a dear friend of mine married a Karen. So anyway, I wanted to share something. You hit on a great point when you were talking about perspective. It's all what you make it. I was talking at the beginning of this about where's your happy place? Find your happy place.
Yeah.
When I was at Lights Motors Action as a stunt driver, my happy place when I was frustrated, because it happens. Even Disney cast members get frustrated.
We all have that place.
My happy place was one man's dream. And it was where I could go and get a shot of the good stuff by listening to Walt himself talk about his dreams, his ideas, seeing those happen, listen to people who would talk about working with him. And I was like, okay, I get it. That's why I'm here. And one day, I've told this story a few times, but one day it had been a really frustrating warm up at our stage. And I was like, okay, first show, I'm out of here. I'm going to One Man's Dream. So I walk out, and as I'm walking out, for those of you who saw the show and you remember the hero cars jumping over the two black cars, and there's a family there. There's a mom and dad and a little boy, and they're looking at the sign. And I walk over to them and I said, hey, can I help you guys with anything? And they looked at me. I wasn't in a costume, so they weren't quite sure. It's like, well, we want to see Herbie. We know he's in the show. And I went, oh yeah, you're in luck, because there's one at 4:15. And the mom looked at me and she goes, oh, that's not going to work. We have to, it was like 2 something, and they had to leave at 3 to get to the airport. And I said, oh, all right. So I turned around, I walked back in, and I talked to my manager and the area leader who was there at the time. There was Jeremy and Andy and Lloyd Odell. They were all there. And this is where it's really important to build relationships, because people trust you and trust your judgment. Yep. And I said, listen, there's a family out there and they can't stay to see the show. And apparently the little boy likes Herbie. Can I bring him on stage? He's like, yeah, sure. So I walk out, and what I didn't mention was, mom had told me the little boy's name was Christopher. So I go out and I said, hey, Christopher. And of course, strange man's voice calling his name. He runs around behind his dad, and all I see is a set of hands holding on to the legs. And then his head peeks out. And I said, so I hear that you really want to meet Herbie and say hi to him. And then he's just nodding. And I was like, well, I went over and I talked to Herbie, and Herbie was like, I've been waiting for that kid all day. Get him back here. So Christopher broke out into a big smile, and I walk him around through the facade. And as we come onto the stage, one of my friends who was a tech there, PK, heard me talking about this. So he went and he woke up Herbie. And as we walked onto stage, Herbie started shaking, his horns honking, and he's making all sorts of a racket. And before any of us could respond, the little boy broke out into a full-on run, ran up to Herbie and hugged one of the wheel wells. And we just sat there because trying to keep the ugly tears in, because it was a real hard feels moment. Mom and Dad came over, we took some photos, sent them on their way. And I never actually made it to one man stream that day, but I felt pretty good. I'd filled my pixie dust bucket. I'd shaken the rust off the bucket, and it was filled up. I get a letter that came through guest relations about 3 weeks later, and it said, "Dear Mr. Ron, thank you very much. Lights, Motors, Action was my favorite attraction. I really enjoyed meeting Herbie. Love, Christopher." They never saw the show. They were on the stage maybe 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes completely transformed their experience. That I wound up getting a letter, which I still have. Those things you can't put a price tag on. I promise you, to this day, and they're talking about that still.
Yep, and that's the magic that I tell people all the time. Like I've told you before, I work as a travel agent with Disney, and I talk to clients about stuff sometimes that they'll have questions or anything else. And the one thing I tell them, I said, listen, the one thing to keep in mind,
yes, I will,
is that you really make the magic yourself. Like it's not just Disney that creates it.
Yes,
it's you.
Disney. That's right. Disney shows us.
It gives you the place to do it.
Yep.
But you have to be opened and able to accept it. And I mean, Tegan and I, when we started with Disney, we had no idea. I'll tell you, our first time to Disney, I've never actually been so scared in my life. Tegan, it was 2012. Tegan was about to turn 6. She was 5 years old. We went in April. We stayed at the Wilderness Lodge, and she wanted a Mickey bar. And I was carrying her on my shoulders. We had just seen like the equivalent of Move It, Shake It. I can't remember what it was then. It might have even been Move It, Shake It. I couldn't remember. I'm getting old. But whatever. We had watched it. Yeah. We watched the parade, and we were dancing, and I watched my daughter dance with Donald Duck and stand there in awe and wave at the characters for the first time. And afterwards, we walked over to the little stand that's to the left of the hub as you face the castle, and there are wrought iron like decorations that hang down, like icicles almost. And Tegan was on my shoulders, and she asked for an ice cream bar, and I handed it up to her, and I stood up from the cash register, and her head went smack into one of those iron rods. And I felt my daughter go entirely limp on my shoulders and collapse. And it knocked her out for a moment. I hit her heart. My heart sank. I went from the highest emotional high to the lowest of lows, literally feeling like I had just knocked my daughter out, and I wasn't even sure if she was breathing. I was so scared. And again, first big trip with my daughter, first time away from mom and away from we had divorced when she was 2. It was my first big trip. I was mortified. I was so scared. I started shaking. I was crying. Cast members were amazing. They came right out. Right on top of everything.
Yep.
She was out for about literally, it felt like an hour. It was about 10 seconds. And then she sat up and started crying, had broken her Mickey bar. It was just crazy. After about 15 minutes sitting with cast members on the bench, she calmed down. They gave her another one. And I got my favorite picture of her I've ever gotten at Disney, with just chocolate lipstick everywhere, because it was a hot day. And, that was the first time I realized how compassionate Disney was, because they took the time to check on me, to check on her, to follow up with everything. And it was the first experience we had where I had to turn in a theme park and look for help. And feel lost. Where's medical? How do I get this taken care of? What do I
Yep.
do? I'm lost. Am I,
But you were in good hands.
Moment. Oh no,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And it showed me so quickly how aware Disney is of everything. And
Yep.
one of the things that has always impressed me is Disney's attention to detail in general. But their attention to detail doesn't stop with design. It's attention to detail when you walk in that park, when every cast member acknowledges your anniversary or your birthday or, whatever your button you're wearing. They look at your shirts. They look at what you're wearing to see what costumes you admire. They look at your tattoos. They comment on things that you don't notice about other people when you're in the grocery store.
You have hit on a key point for why people go to Disney, why they buy annual passes, why they become Disney Vacation Club members and sail on the DCL cruise ship line as much as they do. It's because of, why am I here? It's because of the people. It's because of the relationships. People stay at the same resorts because of the not because, I mean, yeah, the food, maybe the shows, you bet, but people come because of those relationships. And what you said about, the cast members and the compassion, I was walking through the park one day with, a guy I have tremendous amount of respect for, Uma, who I'm proud to say is a fellow legacy recipient, and he's also a leader. The guy's going to be a GM or a VP of a park one day. I just know it. But we're walking through the park, and I'm looking over here, and I turn back, and he's gone. And he has covered about 10 yards of distance where he's now kneeling down, talking to a little kid in a stroller and the family. And as I get up there, turned out the family was from the UK, and the kid had gotten overheated and hadn't drinking enough water, gotten sick on his shirt. So Uma said, "Boss, I'll take care of this." He calls everybody boss. Anyway, he disappears, grabs a shirt from one of the stores, and we have a way of being able to write a ticket to the person behind the register so that we don't, it's not like we're taking this and you're not getting any sort of remuneration. We're taking this to fix what's happening with the guest. But the fact that Uma had grabbed that shirt, and then he went by a custodial closet and grabbed some towels, came back, cleaned the kid off, cleaned the stroller, bundled the shirt up in a towel, gave them the new shirt for the kid to put on. And dad was just absolutely flummoxed. Where do I pay? He was like, "Nope, don't pay, nothing. Go have fun with your family." And those things, traditions does a lot to input certain things that are expected. The 5 keys are a great example. The common goal, mission statement, all of these things you learn. But all of that other stuff, that comes from casting's ability to recognize the character trait of compassion in the people that they hire and bring into the Disney family. Earlier on, you were talking about how some people are, only there 6 months because their college program, maybe they extend and get to stay another 4 to 6 months. But on the other side of that, you've got people who retire from the company after 40, 50, and 60 years.
Oh,
I mean,
that was
a big wow.
What a big percentage of the staffing that the college program plays in the Disney role. And I hadn't realized how many people are involved in the college program, in addition to the full-timers that are there, the people that are cycling through. I just found the numbers sheerly amazing with some of the things I started to learn about it. In no way was that a knock on.
No. I didn't. No, I know it wasn't. And it also, the college program, of course, gives college students that work experience opportunity. It gives operations a chance to move their full-timers into cross-utilization positions they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And I'm glad you mentioned college program, because I wanted to share something. I had the great fortune of being part of the 40th anniversary traditions team. And one of the most magical things that happened to me during one of those classes, I was teaching with another incredible person, And we hand out these Mickey labels, right? And towards the end of the day, one of the cast members that was there, her name was Erica. She wrote this note, and I'm going to hold it up here just so you can see it.
That's awesome.
She wrote this note for us. The coolest part of traditions, and there's so many, the coolest part was bringing people into the Magic Kingdom for the first time who had never been at all.
Yeah.
The other thing was when Mickey would stop by to say hi. You have never seen so many grown-up people bust out into tears in your life, because that's what Disney and Mickey does to people.
Yeah,
and it's pretty awesome.
And I agree, and that's one of the things that we learned quickly. And I've spoken on this before as well, that part of Tegan and I's affinity to Disney is we don't have I work as a DJ, so I work most weekends. My
Right.
weekends off are 5 times a year where I get to travel with Tegan, and that became our time to go to Disney. So when most people spend time with their family on the weekends and, go to the family barbecue or the family birthday, we didn't have that really with my family because of my career. And when Tegan and I started going to Disney, literally Disney became our family. Like there is, Christian at Boma, best server we've ever had at breakfast. We always made sure to make a reservation, catch up with him. He got to celebrate a couple of birthdays with Tegan where he actually bought her with his own money, took care of getting her balloons and got her a cake and had us go in and sit at a table that was all decorated for her without us having to do anything, because he was like family to us. He was just an extraordinary, caring, sincere individual that makes Disney so amazing. And the people like Christian or Helena at Beaches and Cream or Neil at the Tusker House, and I could name hundreds of people, as you all know.
You have to recognize that it's a like spirit attraction. You and Tegan, I've said this to you before, and I'll tell it to anybody who's listening. You can walk into any green room across property and find those thank you cards that y'all hand out. That's worth more than a voucher for lunch.
It's still, and I've told you before, that still humbles and amazes us. We've had waiters pull them out of their wallet and show us the fact that it's made a difference. I think the funniest story, though, was one of the waiters we knew told us that he and the coworkers he worked with were trading them to try to collect them all. And we started laughing about it. But there were people that would get them that didn't work a shift when we were there, or we had gone in on a different time. So they would have multiples of the card that maybe we went 3 times that week and we saw them and gave them. And they were all trying to trade to get them. So I was like, do we need to put like edition numbers on these guys, like edition 16?
Yes.
But it was kind of a joke. But the reality is, Tegan and I have always taken it that it's our attitude going into the park that is how we're going to create our own magic. And the memories we've made, the most magical moments at Disney, it's hilarious. But Tegan and I have talked about this. I don't think one of them is on a ride. I don't think, it's the magical moments we've shared have been with the cast. It's the unique experience, the funny moment, the conversation, the thing that happened, just none of our most amazing memories are based on, I guess the first time we rode Flight of Passage as the first ride of the day, we happened to walk up and some people cut us in line. And I was like, Tegan, don't worry about it. It's kind of funny. And then they loop you around this big section, and the people that cut us went the wrong way, and we wound up being first anyway. And it was just kind of like a weird karma. But even the cast member turned around and went, that's kind of ironic. And, you know, like, and we got a chuckle out of it as we got to walk on and be the first people to ride Flight of Passage. But most of our memories, I can remember talking to a cast member at the Little Mermaid show in Hollywood Studios. And he told us how he was brought to Disney as a baby by his mom, and he like died on property. And they brought him back to life in the ambulance. And his whole life, as he grew up and heard that story from his mother, he felt it was his destiny to go to work for Disney. And, you know,
Disney is his heartbeat.
Like literally. And that's how he tells the story too. And, you know, to hear a cast member tell you a story of how passionate they are and then explain the reasons why, it really goes to show you. And that's one of thousands of people that work there that have similar stories. And when you start to hear the cast member experiences and stories and the information they can share with you, that to me, that's where the magic is. I've said it a million times. The rides, the decorations, everything else, you know, that's all amazing and impressive. And you are awestruck when you walk in and see it all for the first time. You are amazed to walk down Main Street in Magic Kingdom. But what brings the magic and the feeling and the feels and where you actually get the biggest smiles and the most connection is with the cast. And if you take that's where, you know, you really can take that pixie rust and make it pixie dust. That's right. By just being kind. And if you, even when you're frustrated, even when you're down, if you take the right attitude with cast members can turn it around without having to do anything for you. You don't need to get a little yellow slip. You don't need to get your free t-shirt. You know, those are all great things that happen, but a cast member can turn your day around just by telling you something or giving you a story to touch your heart a little bit. It makes you realize what you're complaining about is so insignificant.
I like that you started and with the, you know, you can transform your pixie rust into pixie dust. The great thing, which you mentioned before, Disney doesn't have the monopoly on it, and it's definitely a skill, but you learn it's transferable and anybody can do it. And if you just show up and you're having a great time, you know, Charles mentioned riding Test Track with a kid that was terrified, and it reminded me, I was helping a family that had a couple of stumbles, and I asked the kids, "What do you guys want to do?" And we were in Norway. I said, "Have you ridden for Frozen Ever After? Frozen? Is it Frozen? Wow, Ever After, right? I just forgot the name of the ride. Anyway, sorry, Anna and Elsa, I love you deathly, but anyway, I asked if they'd ridden it, and they was like, "No." I said, "Come on, let's go." So I walk them up. I'm talking to the greeter, and I get them in. And the little girl, she's like, "You're not going to ride with us?" And I went, "Okay." So I went in, wound up riding with them, and then I walked them over to Soarin', got him onto that before I went about the rest of my day. Yes, let it go. Thanks. But you know, building those relationships, Brian, like you said, whether like I returned back to the traditional stage after an almost 2+ decade absence last year, and I was made to immediately feel like I was a part of a family. And one of the key people there, because she had great compassion and yet she was not afraid to crack the whip, was our stage manager. And you know, she's the kind of person that's always paying attention to what's happening, and cast members do the same exact thing. I have seen it happen so many times where, you know, a child becomes so enamored with it. It happened at Nemo, where there was a kid, the front of house stage manager found out the kid wanted to go study musical theater. And I mean, really, I was like, okay, let's see what we can do about that. And after the show, got to meet some of the actors and performers. And it's kind of funny because Disney attracts the best of the best talent. And these people, Brian, they're just as humble as you, which is really, really awesome. One of the performers at Nemo who's the voice of Bruce, did a national tour as the Phantom.
Wow.
What?
That's
and there's
crazy.
Yeah, but he says like, whatever. It was just a little show I did. It's like a little show. Okay, whatever.
Wow.
But your
talent
point
is incredible.
Yes, but your point about the people, I mean, the if you had to ask what's the secret sauce, it's the people. It's the Imagineers and their vision. It's the cast
100%.
members who love what they do. Their cast members show up. It's you learn in traditions. We work while others play. We're going to have to work during holidays. We're going to have to create happiness during our birthdays. But whatever, because I remember my first New Year's Eve I worked in attraction operations. I got to spend New Year's Eve with 100,000 of my newest, closest friends. That was pretty cool.
Well, and I think that's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize. The term cast member, everybody is performing on that stage to make your experience better. Everyone, no matter what the role. And when you are included in the feeling by training that you are part of the cast, you are included, and that inclusivity is what makes Disney so great. Like that's when you think about your own job, your own workplace, the school you go to, the whatever role you're doing currently in your life, in tune with your age, in school, it's cliquey, it's favorite, like there's not a sense of equality in so many places. In Disney's workplace, they work so hard to really create a level of equality to the consumer eye. And listen, we all know it's still cliquey, there's still friends and everything else. But when you step on that stage, everybody is equal. And the way they treat guests, that's why they get a premium price. That experience is worth paying for because you do get the best. When
everybody who walks through the touch points into the resorts is a VIP. It was Walt's vision, and that's why you get that experience. And the clickiness it's not really something I ever felt in any stage I was either on or I got to stage manage.
Right.
Luau Cove, where the Spirit of Aloha dinner show is. They epitomize Ohana, which means family. And I mean, I'll give you a quick example. I was in there reading notes because every Tuesday, manager goes in between shows and talks about what's new, what's happened, learning, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they were celebrating a couple of birthdays. So I was like, okay, enjoy, and I'll see you for second show. And I can't even turn around to walk out. They're like, no, Ron, where are you going? No, you got to stay. You have to celebrate with us. And cast members are very giving. And Brian knows exactly what I mean by that. This can't be stressed enough. You want to learn about the best times to go somewhere, the best things to do. Talk to a cast member. You want to learn the story about, why does the wall look that way? What's that mean on that glass? Cast members know. And honestly, if you want to have an amazing time, it's almost like getting to know the people of the village. Each park and each resort is its own little town. And the cast members, they're the inhabitants. Get to know the inhabitants.
More. I see people make the comments all the time, I wouldn't wait 35 minutes for this ride, or I wouldn't wait 30 minutes for this ride. And it always kind of makes me laugh because we just wasted 30 minutes, not wasted, but we just spent 30 minutes talking to the cast member that's standing at the front.
Yes.
And didn't even get in the line. But we learn more about the ride. Like, by the time we get on that ride, even if we wind up waiting an hour, now we have 16 different things to look at that we never knew. Like whether it be a hidden Mickey, whether it be a trick in the design, whether it be an Easter egg, some tidbit of the Imagineering involved into it, like everything else.
Charles mentioned the point about vacation planners. And the thing that I loved, when you walk into the parks and you see the photographers, in many cases, if they're staffed for it, there'll be a second photographer there to assist, maybe hold bags, help you pose. And when you're queued up to get that picture with the Disney Animal Kingdom tree or Spaceship Earth or Grauman's Chinese Theater, whatever it is, and you've got that second cast member there. I love the fact, one of the cast members over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, his name is John, great photographer, but when he'd be sent out to assist, he was like, great. You know why? He loved it. He got to talk to people. He got to help plan out their vacation. He'd find out what they liked, what they wanted to eat, where they were from, what had they seen, what had they not. By the time they had wasted 20 minutes waiting in line to get some pictures, he had planned out the rest of their holiday.
It saved them 4 hours.
Yeah.
And that's the flip side of it that people don't understand. You take that 20 minutes and spend it with a cast member and learn some stuff. They may save you 2 hours in time by telling you, when you rope drop tomorrow, this is the route you take. We learned how to do Animal Kingdom in less than an hour. We could do all the rides in Animal Kingdom in less than an hour if we could be there at rope drop.
Yep.
And I'm not even kidding, because we met a couple from Disney, from Disneyland, that was out for their first time at Disney World, and I'm still in touch with them today. But they were like, we have an hour before our plane. We have to go to the airport to catch our flight. We have an hour, and we're trying to do everything we can. And Tegan looked at him and was like, follow us. We'll do everything. And we got through. We did Flight of Passage, Navi River, the Safari, Expedition Everest, and Dinosaur, all in an hour. And we had like 15 minutes left when we were going to go do the Bugs Life thing. And they decided, let's take some pictures with all of us. So we ran around all the photo pass spots so we would have memories. 2 years later, they were sending us Christmas gifts. We stay in touch. We send cards. We'll go to California and see them. We call the kid's name is Chris. Jen is his girlfriend. And we call him Uncle Callie to this day. But we met him waiting at the touch points to be one of the first people in, waiting to rope drop a park. And it's, again, those magical stories, those magical moments are what create it. And when you can start to become adept enough, it made me want to become a travel agent for Disney, that you're adept enough to help others have an amazing time or experience, being able to share that. I don't work for Disney Direct, but I love making people's memories and vacations magical.
I feel literally you managed to bring this whole thing full circle. Anybody out there who's listening or watching, anytime you feel that you trip and stumble, you get hamstrung by something, if it's a person, look at them and figure out what's their story. And I mean that in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Just like when you want to talk to people and get to know them, what's your story? I love talking to people and finding out what's going on with them. I spent as much time backstage as on stage when I was a leader, because let's be honest, I can't talk to Princess Jasmine about where her and Aladdin are going to go on their magic carpet ride when they're not there at Epcot. So I have to talk when we're not on stage. But it's the same for guests. And then conversely, if you're having a difficult time, it's easy to get annoyed. It's easy to be dismissive. But if you frame it up instead by looking to extract what's in there, what's going on, and how can I help you to untie whatever that knot is, you would be surprised. You talk to people, you engage people. That's the whole reason, number one, Disney cast members not only have their name, but where they're from. That's an icebreaker. Number two, it's why Disney hands out celebration pins. Happy anniversary, happy birthday, happy graduation. I mean, we want to talk and share our stories. So whether you're having a challenging time or the best time of your life, stop, take a breath, look at that person in front of you or next to you and figure out what's your story and engage them. You'll do yourself also a favor by distracting yourself from whatever the thing is that has you all bound up.
And another secret little topic, if you ever see Chris from Orlando, ask where he's really from or she's really from. You can you can always ask that. Chris from Orlando always seems to have a secret story that they don't tell on the name tag. But just ask. It's a great it's a great icebreaker in the reverse direction.
Yes,
so
it is.
You know, but
only once did I ever talk to a Chris that was actually from Orlando.
But it's funny because, you know, like I joke about that, but there are so many things that over the years, you know, the other thing we've realized is, you know, and again, cast members do make magic for people every single day. And there's tons of magic that happens. But I can't tell you in our 25 plus trips to Disney, how many times the magic has come from another guest to show someone either how to do something better, stopping to take the time to help a couple who's frustrated and doesn't know where they're going or what they're doing, to point them in the direction or walk them to the ride themselves, or to give. I've seen guests give out little gifts. I've watched guys buy 15 or 20 popcorn buckets, you know, to do the reselling and do whatever, but yet they'll give all the popcorn that comes in the bags. They don't necessarily get a bucket, but they get a bag of popcorn with it. They'll give it to the kids that are standing in line.
Yep.
And you know, there are so many moments of kindness. And, you know, if you really want to talk about how you eliminate pixie rust and make it pixie dust, it's no different than how you would do it in your everyday life. You be a little kinder. You show a little more appreciation. You take a moment and give a little compassion and understanding. And if you can do that on your vacation when your frustration builds, you're going to find yourself not only happier and more relaxed. If you, as Charles so eloquently said when you forgot the name of the ride, let it go. You're on vacation. Let it go. If you're struggling, if you're having that hard moment, like if, as you said earlier, if it's a real and justifiable thing, go talk to guest services. Make a manager aware. Make the park aware. Take the time to register your conversation about it. Disney,
I agree. Find a manager before you go to guest relations. If that's impossible, then you go to guest relations. But it's always
definitely don't take it out on the low level.
No,
never.
It
out on the ride operator.
No,
I hate seeing that. You know, and
same.
I think, you know, as a manager and a business owner and everything else, when my customers or my guests have an issue with the service I provide, I want them to come to me direct. And, you know, when you're a corporation as big as Walt Disney is, you know, you need to find the right channels, but finding and starting at management is much better than going after that teenager who is just there trying to, you know, do their college program and get that customer service experience that you can't get at that level in any other company in the world. They're, you know, Disney trains some of the greatest employees ever. It's a great resume builder and everything else. But if you don't take the time to be kind, you're going to
what you just said when Disney had to lay off the tens of thousands of people last year. There were a few individuals who rightly pointed out, and they took to platforms like LinkedIn and said, hey, if you're interviewing someone and you see Disney on their resume, give them a second look. And the reason why I want to stack on what you just said, there's this really amazing, she's always going to be a cast member to me. She's no longer with the Disney organization, but her name is Kelly, and she is so incredible. She got hired by Publix, and Publix recognized what she brought to the table, that she literally just jumped from job to job as they sort of looked at her and realized, wait, this person can lead the way as far as training and things like that. Disney provides a remarkable level of training and an incredible amount of experience for the people, whether it's college program or whether it's someone who's just looking for a summer job. So, it's really important as a guest to recognize that. It's almost, in some ways, the complexity of training is, and I say in some ways, comparable to what a flight attendant goes through to become a flight attendant. People can be pretty gross on planes, and they forget that person up there is trained not only to save your life, but to restrain you if you behave stupidly. They're not just there to give you peanuts and a Coke. Disney cast members, team members at other parks, employees, they're not there to be your verbal punching bags. They're there to help you move your experience to the next level.
Yep. And to point out, we spent a lot of time obviously on Disney tonight, but that fact that you just mentioned is a huge one. And that is, the advice we're giving basically holds true at any major theme park,
anywhere.
For the most part, even at the grocery store, like you want to find a supervisor that's going to be able to help you. And when you deal with customer service or issues on the phone, you always try to escalate it up to someone who's going to be able to actually hear and understand what's going on. And that's important. But at the same time, getting angry or getting frustrated, it's more and more commonplace now where these companies are telling their employees, even in customer service and phone companies, I've even heard it said, if they begin to get vulgar or too much for you, hang up the phone. They're actually told to disconnect the call. So if you don't want to get hung up on, have some respect. If you expect, to have an issue resolved, you need to give the respect that you wish to receive back and be understanding. And that carries through with everything. Like the whole purpose of tonight's show was to talk about how to turn it around.
Yes.
The easiest way is to have the right attitude yourself and not become defeated by your own frustration. Don't be a victim of yourself. You can be a victim of circumstance and try to get it resolved. But the worst thing you can do on vacation is be a victim of yourself. Don't ruin your own vacation. And
you know what? That's a great point. Let's say you arrive at a park. Let's say the entire family is Harry Potter fans, and you arrive at the park and you literally pull into the parking place and you get out and you look and you're like, oh, somehow you picked up a nail. Now you got a flat tire. Well, I would turn that into a positive. No one's stealing that car. Come on, kids, let's go. Because you can't fix the flat tire now, so might as well fix it later. The car's not going anywhere. It's Brian, you mentioned it several times tonight. It's all about optics. It's all about perspective. If you take things and sort of massage them onto their side, I think that gives you a little breathing space. And I think sometimes that's all people need.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people just forget in life in general is to try to view it from the other side. Take a moment, before you blow up.
What's your story?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
what's your story?
Well, what is this kid going to think when I start going off on him right now because I'm frustrated?
What's going on? What's going on in his world?
He really doesn't care. He didn't want to get up at 7:00 this morning to be at his dad.
Yes.
He's having a rough day himself. Why should I get at him? And talk yourself out of it before you blow up.
Can I tell you something? I always thanked people for being there. I thanked whether I was talking to entertainers and talent, I was talking to cast members, photographers, whoever it was, I always said, thank you for being here. Sometimes they'd say, well, I have to be here. It's like, no, you don't. You could have called in. You could have decided to go to the beach. I mean, it's a beautiful beach day, but thank you for being here. It means a great deal to me. It means a great deal to our guest. And it's a thing I started doing when we were allowed to sort of start traveling. I was traveling a lot at one point, and I would thank people behind the plexiglass and behind the register and the person bringing me my meals. Like, thank you for being here. It's a thing I still do. And every once in a while, someone will say, "Oh, wow, yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for saying that." So, think about the narrative. When you look at that person, you figure out in your mind, what's their story? Be on the lookout to create happiness, and you'll find it's transformative.
And try to create your own.
Yeah.
No joke. You're on vacation to enjoy yourself and enjoy your time with your family. You can wake up tired. You could be exhausted. Whatever it is, take the time to create your own happiness. Find the thing that's going to fulfill you for the day, and try to fill your tank. Make your own pixie dust. Don't rely or count on someone else to do it for you. I think they say that in relationships. Before you can love anyone else, learn to love yourself. And I think it really kind of holds true even down to taking a family vacation. You're not going to be happy on vacation unless you yourself are allowing yourself to enjoy it. So if you're not going to take the time to find happiness on vacation or create that happiness, how can you expect your whole family to enjoy it if they know you're frustrated?
Right. And I think
it all goes
adding to that, if that's your frame of mind when you show up, why even leave the house and go on a holiday to begin with? Why spend that money? Why, give it to a charity if that's what's going to happen to you.
Well,
so it's important to be proactive about that.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think tonight we covered a lot. I think we did a good job. Hopefully the people viewing feel we did a good job covering what we said we were going to. Guys, want to encourage everyone to post on the page, share the page, suggest topics. What do you want us to talk about on episode 3? We definitely have a lot of pokers in the fire, so we can come up with topics, but we want to get some fan topics too. So what would you guys like to hear us talk about and spend an hour on? And, who would you like to see us talk with? I have a really good friend I'd like to get on at some point to talk about disability accessibility with Disney. He has a special needs child, extraordinary family guy. They love Disney. They live Disney. I would love to have him come on and join us and talk about both the pluses and some of the frustrations that he deals with a special needs child and what he wishes more people could understand. Because I know there's a lot of those things that happen. I know even right now, there's no fast passes going on, but people kind of get the evil eye that walk through the fast pass line. And a lot of people don't understand why that line is utilized right now. So I'd like to discuss some of that stuff to be able to clarify it so people don't feel as frustrated or hurt, because it's nothing scandalous, I promise. It's all part of Disney's amazing plans. But, I want to be able to do shows that we give you guys the information that helps you out in the future too. So you have
we're here for you.
Yeah,
we're here for you.
And if you want us to do a show on Easter eggs or on hidden things or secrets, or I know Ron's very knowledgeable of Walt's vision and what Walt looked for in the parks originally, just let us know. And we'll shoot a show on it. We'll talk a live stream. I want to thank Charles and Rebecca and Chris for piping in tonight and making some comments, especially Charles. Thank you for being active. We want you all to be active as you come on and this builds. We want you guys talking to us through the stream and us being able to interact with you. This is for you. We want you to be part of it, and we want you to enjoy what we're doing. We love talking Disney and the theme parks and helping make your vacation experience better. That's the whole purpose behind this. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. I know Ron thanks you too. And
I do.
Next week, Tuesday, 9:00, we're gonna go for it again, and we'll see what we come up with for a topic. Anything you want to close with, Ron?
I just simply going to build on what you said. I appreciate everybody who's out there listening and watching. Becca, thank you. And ultimately, I hope if you take one thing away from tonight's show, it's if you have to count to 10 or do whatever your special trick is to not be as angry or upset, do it. And then look at the person or the situation and ask, what's the story with that person? What's the story with the situation? What's going on here? Take the time. And if you do it, if you take the time, you can make the time to make it better. That's it. And yeah, we're here for you. So give us your questions and your queries, and let's all create happiness together.
That's awesome. I hope everybody enjoys a wonderful holiday weekend this weekend, and we will see you next week.
Yes, we will. Good night, everybody.
Ron, you can go get some sleep now.
No. The horrible thought through my head was, I just realized July 4th weekend, and who here has seen someone do something stupid with fireworks? Not me, but it's just, it's almost like full moons on weekends. July 4th brings out the dopey in people.
Well, maybe next week we can talk about the Seven Dwarfs and do some stories. We'll be all set. So next week's topic may be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, to include dopey. Guys,
I think we have our topic.
Guys, have a great night. Have a great holiday. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.